All right. Hey, we're on. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming to my talk. Hopefully an exciting 25 minutes. Going to take you through a story entitled How Peoplesafe Rocked the Boat and Got an 85% Win Rate. And what all that means will become clear, hopefully, over the next 20 or so minutes. So to jump in with some introductions before we get going, who am I? Why am I here? Two questions my wife asks me every morning. I still don't have good answers, but in a business context, I do. I'm Nick Mason. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of a business called Turtl. We help B2B marketers drive revenue from the content that they produce day in and day out. We work with some of the biggest brands in the world. We've got a few here, Lexus, Cisco, Ricoh, Toyota. I like to say we work with everyone from Amazon to Zealous, so the full A to Z. And I was asked to come here today to share a story. I love telling stories. Stories are a great way to transmit information and inspire people. A story from one of the many thousands of marketers and companies that we have helped over the years on their mission of turning their content into revenue. And that's what we're going to spend the next 25 minutes doing. So that's me, that's why I'm here. So over the next 20-ish minutes, I'm going to introduce a big, hairy challenge that a particular marketer was dealing with, how they made a change in approach in order to tackle that challenge in a new way. They took bold action, we're going to look at that, and they got some great results, which I'm looking forward to sharing. So I hope that from this time you get a good news motivational story, something good to take away, and hopefully inspire some new ideas and ways of looking at old problems, and also, slightly cryptically, a sense of what is possible when we stop doing incrementalism. And I'll unpack what that means. The rabbit here in the corners remind me that I'm always late and I always overrun, so I will say no more on that and I will get straight into the meat of things. So, no story is complete without a cast of heroes. So let's meet the heroes of our story today. So on the left here, we have a tremendous man, Russell Webb. Who is Russell Webb? He's a marketing campaign manager at a company called Peoplesafe. He is tasked in his role with generating net new pipeline, generating existing pipeline, generally moving that whole pipeline conversation forwards. He's been around the block at Peoplesafe, 5 years, and he's seen a whole ton of change, including diversification of their offering, going for a wider market, pivoting of their marketing strategy. He's been there, he's seen that, he's got the t-shirt. When it comes to Peoplesafe and marketing, he knows what's what. And unsurprisingly, he has a massive focus on optimizing digital channels. So that's Russell. But obviously, he's only half of the heroes because we also have the company that he works for. Now, Peoplesafe are a fascinating business. Their strapline is protect your people wherever, whenever. So the way they build themselves is they provide technology where if you've got people, employees, staff out in the field, they are at times going to need help. They get into trouble, they get into difficult situations, they need help. And they are faster than 999 at getting that help to those people, really critical services, and they are available 24/7. They never sleep. Unsurprising, they've got some amazing customers, Pret, Sky, Eon, Lloyds, and Arsenal, to name but a few. Very cool, inspiring business. They cover over 250,000 people. So there's over 250,000 people in the world, I think maybe just in the UK at the moment, who are covered and they can pick up the phone to Peoplesafe when they get into a tight spot. So a very cool company doing very cool and noble things, and they're very ambitious, big goals, aggressive trajectory, as we shall see in just a minute. So we can begin the story now. We've got the heroes, we've got the concept. Let's set sail, let's see what happens. Plain sailing, storms on the horizon. Let's dive in. So as with all good stories, the first chapter is good. We're doing all the right stuff. Russell's got his team, no issues there. Everyone's rowing in the same direction, executing well, good people, good skills, executing across a range of the usual marketing activity that you would expect. So he's rowing hard with his content, with his campaigns. He's coming to events such as this one, running ads, paid search, paid social, everything's going well. Hitting all the KPIs he's being asked of and generally smashing it. Russell's a happy boy, everyone in his team is happy, his boss is happy. What could possibly go wrong? Well, unsurprisingly, as with all happy beginnings, there is a scary monster that appears, and we're characterizing this here as a kraken. There's a kraken in the depths that appears. And I'd like to take a moment here to appreciate ChatGPT. This is a ChatGPT generated image. There are a few of these scattered throughout the presentation, which is why some things have too many arms. But I think the prompt here was, do me a picture of a big scary kraken rising out of the depths and swallowing a ship. And I think you'll agree with me that it absolutely nailed the brief. Slightly terrifying that it's able to be so good in such a short space of time, but there we go. So a Kraken appears, a monster, a problem in that plain sailing for Russell to deal with, ready to rip Russell's lovelily constructed marketing team and ship to shreds. And that Kraken is really simple and something that probably most people here can relate to, which is that marketing is now on the hook for revenue. And so where Russell previously had been able to report upwards and talk to his managers, his bosses, and the wider business about different KPIs around traffic, conversion rates, all that stuff, now they're saying, hey, yeah, that's great, but what about revenue? How are you driving the pipeline? How are you driving the revenue? How are you moving that needle? And Russell found himself in a space, as we shall see, where he didn't actually have the tools to answer those questions. And what he realized, standing back and starting to think about these new challenges, questions that he was being faced with, is I need to have a bloody revenue story. I need to be able to communicate to the higher-ups in the business, to my CRO, to my CMO, how am I driving revenue? How am I making that happen? You're giving me a ton of money, a ton of budget. I'm going and spending that. I'm getting KPIs. That's now no longer enough. I need a revenue story for every dollar that I spend, ideally. And I need to be able to communicate not only that story, but how that's going to get better quarter on quarter. Because we're not here to stand still, remember. We've got big ambitions. We want to grow. So that's the big Kraken that Russell realized. I am now on the hook for revenue. Oh, crap, I need to do something about that. And there's a serious point here. I always like to be lighthearted about stuff, no matter how big the challenge. But there's a serious point that the CMO role has the highest turnover in the C-suite. I imagine most people knew that. But the average tenure of a CMO is under 2 years. That's far lower, quicker turnover than any other role in that C-suite. And if you think about it, if that marketer, if that CMO was able to tell that revenue story and explain how they're driving revenue today and how they're going to improve that over time, there would be no need to get rid of that person with the same frequency, unless, of course, they massively underperformed versus the story. So this thing is really important, and I think underpins some of the challenges that the CMO role has seen generally over the last perhaps 5 or 10 years. So there's a serious point in here. This has got to be solved, right? Otherwise, Russell is going to end up in a similar sticky spot. And so Russell constructed a master plan. Hopefully some people get the reference of the image here, very famous album cover, slightly relevant at the moment. He constructed a master plan, and that was centered around death to incrementalism. And so we're going to unpack what that looked like and how Russell went about killing incrementalism in his marketing team for all intents and purposes. So he started by taking a step back and saying, look, if I'm on the hook for revenue and I want to drive some change in my marketing function and for the business, I want to do that in a structured way. And my structure is going to come down to satisfying the needs of 3 different people, key stakeholders within my world. Myself, my team, and my customers. And if I get that right, I'm going to be okay. So he tried to come up with questions that he could ask of any part of his marketing activity, any part of his spend, to understand, is it fit for purpose? Is it helping me? Is it making the boat go faster? Or is it slowing us down? So to unpack these, what is it doing for me? Well, as we saw previously, it had better have a revenue story. It had better help me connect the spend that I'm making here up to outcomes that I can contribute to revenue that the business is trying to hit in terms of targets. And it had better help me improve that story, because that's what I'm on the hook for now as a marketer in this business. Does it help me deliver on my objectives and manage upwards, yes or no? For his team, what he wanted to do is spark agility. We want to ship stuff quickly. We want to get things done. We want to be able to move at pace. The world is a very dynamic, movable thing at the moment, more so than ever. And so if his team can't move quickly and get their ideas shipped and into practice in short order, it's going to be a real problem. Or is this spend creating bottlenecks that's slowing me down? And what would it take to go faster? He wants to enable his team to get after those revenue targets. And finally, crucially, what's it doing for my customers? Does this activity delight them? Does it make them happy? Does it make them smile? Does it make them think favorably about our brand? Does it make them want to work with us? Or does it piss them off and make them want to walk away? Does it position us well? And frankly, can I even tell the impact that I'm having on customers? So Russell took those questions and he applied them to many different aspects of his marketing practice. And the area that we're going to zoom in on is his content. So Russell applied this to his current content practices, and as you can see, the scorecard wasn't great, but we'll go through this. First of all, in the column for Russell, was it helping him tell a revenue story? No. Most of his content was a black hole. No data coming in, no insight into what was working, what wasn't working, what was driving pipeline, what was causing, what was correlating with the outcomes that the commercial team needed to see in order to hit their numbers and solve that being on the hook for revenue. As a result, it couldn't help him improve the story because it couldn't even tell the story in the first place, and it wasn't helping him deliver on his objectives and his manage upwards problem. So fairly poor on what his content was doing for Russell, for himself. In terms of his team, he had a big problem because all content that was being produced, all the case studies, white papers, thought leadership, all that good stuff, had to go through a single designer in his team so that it could be produced with InDesign Illustrator, a very big bottleneck in terms of just getting stuff shipped. So it was creating a huge bottleneck, and they could go faster. But the only way they could go faster was by hiring another 3 designers, which unfortunately Russell didn't have the budget for. He couldn't scale in that way. So it was possible, but impractical for him to scale and help his team go faster, and therefore solve that middle column. And finally, what was it doing for his customers? And frankly, he didn't know, because there was no data. As I said, it was a black hole. No idea. Are people engaging? Are they tuning out? Are they spending 10 minutes reading or 10 seconds? If you don't know if you're delighting people, you don't know if it's positioning them well, and if you can't tell, then you can't answer those questions. So a fairly bleak scorecard for content, but Russell was really happy about this because the whole point was not to identify small increments, but to identify big areas where he could change the game and move the needle in a substantial way. He wasn't looking for 1 or 2%, he was looking for a big swing, right, in order to help him with that revenue objective and that problem. And so, as I say, he worked out that an incrementalist approach to those problems wasn't going to work. A radical rethink was going to be needed. And so when Russell peeked below the hood of this problem and started to really delve into the depths of what was going wrong, he found quite an interesting common cause, which is that his team were producing and publishing a lot of their stuff in outdated formats, such as the PDF, right? And the PDF is nearly as old as me. It was born in 1991, so it's nearly arriving at its 35th birthday. And what he found is that the PDF actually was the cause of a lot of those core problems. So to name a few, the slow production was the fact that you needed to be an expert in InDesign and Illustrator in order to ship anything. If you don't do that, you can't get the output. Big problem, causing that bottleneck, causing that pain for the team. For the customer, when Russell spoke to people about this and tried to get an understanding as to the impact that the content was having on his target market, the feedback was, well, it makes you kind of feel old and a bit prehistoric, not that dynamic, not that interesting, just sort of a bit trapped in the past. And finally, for Russell, if you remember his column, he had no data or insights, so he couldn't see what was moving pipeline, as I say, how he could tell that story or how to improve. So he kind of identified this as the focal point of his efforts. So turning over a new chapter, death to incrementalism. He'd identified the problem space, understood what his issues were, what the crux, what the apex of those things were, and so now it was on him to find the solutions and understand how to map that forward. So he used the same model as before, and rather than turning it into challenges for his existing processes like he saw before, he made a wish list to try and understand what is going to drive this quantum leap, in this case with my content, which is going to help me move the needle and solve that problem of me being on the hook for revenue. And he came at it like this. He said, well, sort of from my investigations, from what we've seen before, I need whatever comes next to be data first. I need that to be at the heart. It can't be an afterthought. It can't be an add-on. It can't be something where if I really torture my UTM tokens, I can make this work. This has to be data-centric. Really important for him. As a result, he realized he read a lot, and he gets a lot of intent signals from other part of his marketing efforts. And so his challenge was, well, I spend a third of my marketing budget on my content. Why aren't I getting those intent signals? Those are really working for us in other areas. Why isn't my content producing those? I want those. Another key requirement. Very smart move, the next one. He wanted map or CRM integration, in his case, Pardot. Because if he's on the hook for revenue, and revenue is measured, managed, monitored, optimized in these systems, if he's got marketing activity which isn't feeding into those, this is a no-no. Because he's spending money and he's not getting that story out into the central system that the business, the team, the sales team, and the marketing team are using to manage that revenue story. If it's not plugging in there, it doesn't show up on the revenue map. Very important. And finally, performance insights, because he wanted to know if people were enjoying the content or tuning out after 30 seconds. For his team, unsurprisingly, quick and easy to produce, even if you're not a designer, and he wanted it to be personalizable. So Russell had seen some real success in other areas of his marketing effort, personalizing stuff. Obviously, with his old practices, he couldn't do that. So any new solution, he wanted to be able to personalize. And finally, for his customers, interactive, engaging, best of breed in that direction, but also he wanted it to be mobile friendly. He found he had a lot of mobile readers, PDF, pinch, zoom, scroll up and down, try and navigate, not going to work. I want it to be mobile friendly. And I also want it to be latest and greatest. So one of the issues that we didn't cover earlier is that the content that Russell was producing previously was out of date the minute it was shipped. So he'd ship an asset about something or other, a case study would update, a stat would improve, a product line would change. What does he do? Recall all those things? No, he has to go rework them, go redistribute. So he wanted it to be always latest and greatest, which is what he would expect from, again, any other area of his marketing. This is where we come in. That kind of led him inextricably to us. This is why we exist. We exist to solve these problems. But this story isn't about us, it's about Russell. So back to Russell. Fast forward 6 months, and a lot of hard work, integrations, training, embedding new processes, new technology into his business. All of the credit on Russell's side and his team. They were phenomenal. They did all the heavy lifting. We just kind of cheered them on and worked hard with them to make sure they had what they need, but Russell did all of this. He got to a place where everyone in his team was making content. Not just that designer with InDesign and Illustrator. Everyone was making stuff that was always on brand, no question about that. It was always interactive and engaging. They had no design training, and actually what he found is other functions leaning around the door and saying, can I have some of that as well? So he ended up not only enabling his team and removing bottlenecks in marketing, but also starting to work with the customer team and the sales team and other teams around the business with similar bottlenecks and starting to solve this. So Russell looks like a hero, not just in marketing, but also across the business because he's worked out how to solve this problem. Big tick for Russell, his street cred goes through the roof. For his customers, he got amazing reader feedback. Again, all down to Russell. He was able to prove that people were reading for 183% longer than they were previously. And this actually undercooks it slightly. What that means is a 2.83 times improvement. So 100% in this measure is not the same. 100% is a doubling, right? So this undercooks it a bit. A stratospheric increase in the amount of time that people were spending with all of his hard-earned content. He was also able to give customers more of the content that they want, as we shall see, because he could know what was driving the read times, which topics, which themes, which channels, and so give the people more of what they wanted, which is always what we should be doing as marketers, and it was also capable of being read on the go, as we said before. So this is great. We've solved problems for Russell's team, and he's solved problems for his customers, and he's got everyone happy, but Russell also, as with all of us, has selfish goals to achieve. So how did Russell get on with solving his problems? So for Russell, what he got, which was his dream, was data. And what Russell managed to construct, I've got a diagram here which I'll talk through, was his ideal, his perfect data journey and his ability to tell that revenue story to his business and quash, as we shall see, that kraken. So high level, what he got were the intent signals that he wanted. He could see who was reading, how long, what do they care about, which topics, how much did they consume, did they share it, what's the buying group, etc. He got performance metrics, what's working best, what do I do more of, which channels, etc. And it was all pushed directly, in Russell's case, into Pardot. And so what this diagram shows is that what Russell did is unlock the potential of all of that content. We've got his former PDFs here in a very poorly drawn jail in a cage, where it's in there, it's great stuff, it's really well written, it's wonderful, it's engaging, but it's in a cage. So Russell had no idea who was reading, and he had no idea, as I said before, this is the dotted line, how that was connecting up to revenue. So it was all hand-wavy and like, well, it's probably doing something or other, but who the hell knows? What Russell was able to do is to change the game and unlock all of the data that his content should have been producing. So for the first time, he and his team can see who's reading it. What are their names? Where are they from? Where are they in the funnel? What's their relationship with us? But all of that engagement, every click, every page turn, every engagement was turning into valuable data which got shipped straight into Pardot. And Pardot, in his case, is the engine which generates the insights that feed the rest of the business. And so by contributing to that data pool, to those insights, there was a whole new level of granularity and information available to that machine, to that engine, as indicated by the gold bars here, which then feed into the sales and marketing team, who look very happy here, and they are then able to make better decisions. Who do I speak to? What do I speak to them about? Et cetera, and therefore leading to more revenue. As I said, I'm a terrible timekeeper. I've only got 5 minutes left and a ton of slides, so let's go. So that's what happened on a practical basis, but what about the Kraken? We spoke about the Kraken. He's now holidaying on a nice beach somewhere. These are his holiday snaps. But why is he on holiday? Well, what Russell saw in terms of KPIs and ultimately in terms of business outcomes was the following. He was able to demonstrate a 33% increase in not just leads, but high quality leads, the Glengarry leads, if anyone knows that reference, into the sales team. Not just rubbish leads, not just volume, but the real quality. Because he could see, as I've said before, who was engaging, what are their pain points, what's keeping them up at night, where are they at in terms of engagement, what's the buying group, and therefore focus sales and marketing on the right ops to build more pipeline. On the other side, he was able to drive a higher win rate, an 85% win rate, the title of the presentation. Industry standard, by the way, in Russell's industry, 43%. So a huge material increase in win rate, right? And so he was able to see who's reading, what they care about, all the stuff we discussed before to win more revenue. Now, as is often the case with our customers, we don't get to see behind the curtain in terms of precisely the revenue, maybe because they think that we charge more, but that's not the point. We love helping people. And so working an example here, these are theoretical numbers to call that out. These are not Russell's numbers, but this is based on, for a business that's generating 100 opportunities a month with an industry standard win rate of 25% and a 10K ASP, you run the funnel maths on this, that's $1 million of additional revenue annually by making that change, right? And Russell's only just getting started. So able to tell the revenue story, able to solve that question in terms of how are you driving revenue with every dollar we're giving you with you, Russell, and also how he's going to improve that over time, because now he's got the data and the measures to allow him to do that. So there we go, $1 million. And that is how, in our world, all of our content, my belief, should be actively driving revenue. We should be able to connect up through data to that story to solve that problem of being on the hook as marketers for revenue. And so to conclude, the Kraken was slayed. In Russell's case, his team were pumped. They were able to act with speed and ship stuff quick and get stuff done. He smashed the revenue target, and Russell's hero status was never in doubt. And I'm sure you never doubted it either at the start of the story. And so that's the end of the story that I have about Russell and Peoplesafe. So to recap very quickly, marketing on the hook for revenue. We're seeing this more and more with people that we work with. I don't know, maybe you're seeing it too. Russell looked for radical improvement, not incrementalism, big jumps, quantum gains. How are we going to do this? He structured his thinking around what mattered most. And I think this is where Russell really played a blinder. Rather than diving into the detail and starting trying to tweak things and optimize, he said, I need to take a step back. I need to approach this problem differently and come with big ideas, not little increments. That's not going to get me there. He also executed really well. That always helps. They got what they wanted, and so the Kraken is gone until next time. Because Russell knows, as we all know, that you hit the metrics for this quarter, what happens next quarter, they go up. But hey, that's life, that's how it works. So that's the tale of Russell and Peoplesafe. Thank you for listening. If you're interested and you want to know more, we're just around the corner here, TP7. And so come and have a chat with us. There's my LinkedIn, there's an email address, there's a website. I love to talk about this stuff. It's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So please do come and have a chat. And I will just say thank you very much. Happy to take any questions, comments, or abuse in probably the 3 minutes that we have left now. So if there's any questions, great. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Thanks.